Hello, my name is Linda Diaz and I'm coming to you from Laredo, Texas. So today we're going to talk about the referral, evaluation, and implementation process when it comes to special education. So when we're talking about the referral process, I always start with my parents because my parents are my first ones. And I always tell my parents, you have a lot of rights. You cannot be denied. So if it is a parent request, I always tell my parents to do it in writing. And the school does have, in our case, the school does have 15 days to respond to a parent in writing. And I always tell my parents that if they're requesting an evaluation by law, that evaluation needs to be done. The teacher can't say, oh, it's because I don't see. No. Or the counselor, I don't think so. Or administrator, it's because we don't want to have so many kiddos. No. If you as a parent request the testing, then by law it needs to be done. So if it is a parent request, that will go through the parent request. If it is a teacher initiated referral, then usually the teacher has gone through either MTSS or RTI, and she'll bring it up to that committee. Once she brings up the reason for the referral to the committee, in my case, in my district, the teacher has 2 weeks. Every district is different. In my case, the teacher does have 2 weeks to gather what we call the special evaluation packet. This packet is going to include the student's profile, all of the student's testing and academic history that includes local and state, a health screening, a medical history, a grade level checklist, a teacher checklist, an observation, parent interview. So all of this preponderance of data will be included in that special education packet. Once that teacher has the packet done, then she will turn it into the educational diagnostician. At that point, the educational diagnostician will call parent and will also make sure that they have consent to evaluate. That's why I tell the parent, we keep you informed at every process, at every step of the evaluation. And if the parent at that point says yes, does give consent, then the educational diagnostician has 45 school days to go ahead and get that evaluation done on the child. Now, we try not to take the 45 school days, obviously, but he does have 45 days. Once the diagnostician is done with the assessments, and they usually administer the Woodcock-Johnson, CTOP, it all depends on what they are testing the students, and then we use informal observations such as like screeners, can they say their alphabet, can they do certain sight words, things like that. So once the diagnostician is done, then he will call together the meeting to convene the committee to review the results. Now in this committee, which is the IEP/ARD committee, we're going to have the educational diagnostician, the administrator, the parent, the general education teacher, the special education teacher, the counselor, and if needed, any other kind of support staff. For example, if they're bilingual, then we would need a bilingual representative there. If it's for speech, we would need the speech pathologist. For behavior, we would need the behavior analyst. So depending on the reason that the child was evaluated, that is going to determine what kind of stakeholders will be invited to the testing. The general education teacher will bring all the information about the child academically, what are the strengths and what are the needs. And then the special education teacher will bring in her expertise of working with students with different disabilities and being able to best provide accommodations or modifications for the child. The teacher does need to have a thorough understanding of the typical development of children and what they're supposed to be able to do depending on their grade level. That way they can best identify students who might be at risk. And the key is early identification. For us here is the key. The earlier we identify them, the better we're able to provide those sources for them, and the better we're able to help try to close that gap that they might have. Now, teachers also need to take into consideration, or the committee needs to take into consideration certain factors. For example, if the child is bilingual, is it something that has to do with language? Is the child barely learning the language? Is the child transitioning from their native language into the English language? Is it lack of instruction? For example, if the child is absent a lot, is tardy a lot, gets taken out a lot, or if the child moves a lot from school to school to school. So there are different factors that the committee will be looking at. That's why it's so important that once that committee convenes, that there is sufficient enough information about the child, the overall picture of the child. That way the committee can make the best plan to suit the needs of that child. is all on an individual basis depending on the need of the child. Thank you so much for listening. I appreciate it. Bye.